Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're strapping in for a pretty fascinating journey, actually. We're exploring the emerging world of Metaverse tourism.
That's right.
We pulled together a really interesting collection of sources, academic papers, some forward-looking analyses. The goal here is to get a solid grasp on, what this really is, where it might be heading, and some of the key things you should keep in mind as it develops.
Think of it as your shortcut to being well-informed.
Exactly. Your shortcut on maybe the next big thing in how we experience travel.
So, yeah, what is Metaverse tourism? I mean, at its core, it's about experiencing these virtual versions of real places or even totally made-up ones inside a metaverse.
Right, traveling without actually leaving your house.
Pretty much. It's that idea of exploration, but virtual.
Okay, let's unpack Metaverse itself for a second. It's that mix of meta and universe, right? Suggesting something beyond our reality.
Exactly. And it's quite different from traditional tourism.
Yeah, our sources highlight that traditional tourism usually means, money goes to the place you visit. You experience the culture, the lifestyle, the nature firsthand.
Metaverse tourism kind of flips that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. But the idea of virtual travel isn't totally new, is it?
No, not at all. The concept of virtual tourism actually dates back to the mid-'80s, believe it or not, as tech allowed digitizing locations.
Wow. The 80s. What did that even look like?
Early stuff was focused on just presenting information better, moving beyond text, adding better visuals, maybe some early 3D models, like a really fancy digital postcard you could sort of interact with.
So from fancy postcards to what we're talking about now, that's a huge leap. How did it evolve?
Well, the definition has really broadened. Now we're talking digital twins. Those are like exact virtual copies of physical things.
Okay.
Digital currencies, blockchain technology. Blockchain is key for sorting out who owns what in these virtual spaces.
Right. Ownership becomes a thing.
Absolutely. It allows for much more immersive, interactive environments. But there are still technical hurdles.
Like what?
Well, a big one mentioned is bandwidth and latency. Making sure the internet connection is fast enough and responsive enough to handle these large-scale, really immersive 3D events without lagging or glitches, especially across all the different platforms and devices people might use.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The term metaverse itself feels like it exploded recently, but it has history, right?
Oh, definitely. It's become super popular since maybe late 2020, especially with tech enabling these bigger, more open 3D virtual worlds.
But the roots go deeper.
Yeah, the core concept was brewing in science fiction for ages, and it got incubated in the gaming world quite a bit. Think of early virtual globes, online communities. That was a kind of early commercial cyberspace.
So people were already doing digital experiences on social media, maybe just not calling it the metaverse.
Precisely. We were kind of dipping our toes in already. But, the sources also mentioned the early hopes for cyberspace back in the 90s and some of the downsides that emerged.
Right, that optimism about connection and maybe eliminating fake news.
Yeah, that vision. But then we saw the rise of, hateful online spaces and misinformation spreading like wildfire.
Which makes you pause and think about where this is all going.
It does. And the big question now, as one source puts it, is whether the metaverse will be a genuinely new kind of experience, an AlterQuest, they call it, or just Universe 2.0. Another place for the same old content.
That's a really critical distinction. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The tech that actually powers this. What are the key building blocks?
Our sources consistently point to four main technologies: digital twins, blockchain, 5G, and AI, artificial intelligence.
We touched on digital twins, those virtual representations.
Right. And because they persist, they allow for these really rich, ongoing social interactions. Information can potentially flow back and forth between the real thing and its digital twin.
Which naturally brings up security and privacy concerns.
Big time. Yeah.
Okay, and blockchain. We hear that term a lot. Its role here.
Think of it like a shared, unchangeable digital logbook. It secures digital assets, especially in this move towards Web3, the sort of next-gen internet focused on decentralization and user ownership.
Right.
Blockchain lets users actually own their digital items. Every transaction is recorded openly, verified by the network. It's reliable.
Makes sense. And virtual reality, VR. That seems like the most obvious fit.
It does, doesn't it? VR has been seen as a key tool for tourism for a while, offering these super immersive virtual tours. It can overcome distance, cost.
The idea's been around since the 90s, you said.
Yeah, early 90s. There's been debate, of course, about whether it could ever replace real travel.
Probably not entirely.
Likely not. But it definitely offers potential for multi-sensory experiences that just aren't possible otherwise. The challenge is accessibility, making the tech affordable for tourism boards for users. That's still ongoing.
In augmented reality, AR that's different, layering digital stuff onto the real world.
Exactly, like those social media filters everyone uses. For tourism, imagine pointing your phone at a ruin and seeing a reconstruction overlaid.
Okay, I can see that.
The challenge there is creating AR experiences that are genuinely engaging, more than just a simple filter, something that adds real value.
Got it. Now, the sources dig a bit deeper into blockchain again. What's the real power it brings to the metaverse specifically?
Its power lies in providing that secure, decentralized foundation. It ensures digital content, images, videos, whatever can be verified, tracked, accessed securely. It helps different internet systems talk to each other better.
Interoperability.
Right, smoother connections. And it's the absolute backbone for digital ownership, for assigning value to digital creations. Using encryption, using smart contracts to manage rights, potentially leading to fairer rewards for creators.
Like a secure foundation for a whole digital economy within the metaverse.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So with all this tech converging, who are the players actually building this world of metaverse tourism?
It's a real mix, actually, a diverse ecosystem. You've got companies in virtual property, commerce, game development, online platforms.
The usual suspects, maybe? Big gaming companies.
Definitely. Major gaming corporations are buying up virtual land, startups too. And you're seeing leisure and fashion brands dipping their toes in, trying to link real-world stuff to virtual spaces.
So they're adapting existing tech more than building from scratch.
That seems to be the trend, yeah. Iterative development, acquiring existing hardware and software environments.
And the users.
Yeah.
How do we show up in the metaverse?
Typically as avatars, your virtual self. You use them to move around, interact, play games, socialize, attend events, even shop using virtual currencies. Some people are even generating income in these worlds.
Okay. And the sources mention some specific major platforms.
Yeah, names like Roblox, Fortnite Creative, Spatial, Decentraland come up a lot. Roblox gets mentioned for its big ambitions.
But maybe some challenges too.
Right. Things like platform access, how virtual items are priced, how user data is used. Those are still being figured out. But there's huge potential with, say, next-gen avatars and letting users bring in assets they've created elsewhere.
Interesting. And one source noted that virtual tour guides, like for spiritual or historical tours, aren't as developed yet.
Yeah, that seems to be an area lagging behind its real-world counterpart.
What about the traditional tourism companies? Are they getting involved? How?
Oh, definitely. The metaverse offers huge opportunities for them, especially for marketing. They can watch trends, understand what grabs users' interest, what drives sales.
Like a giant virtual focus group.
In a way, yeah. It lets them test new marketing ideas, reach new audiences, maybe even create virtual versions of experiences that just wouldn't be practical in reality.
And it's not just the big guys, right? Individuals and smaller businesses.
Absolutely. Individual users, digital artists, small travel agencies, they're becoming content creators, making 3D environments, digital assets that can be bought and sold.
User-generated content.
Exactly. It's democratizing creation, potentially cutting costs, helping niche branding, though, authenticity can be a concern.
Sure.
We're even seeing early metaverse travel agencies building on this user content and reviews. The key will be making creation tools easy to use for everyone.
Right. Let's switch gears a bit. What's the actual user experience like? What are the upsides for someone jumping into metaverse tourism?
Well, the potential for marketing and engagement is huge. That try before you buy idea becomes really powerful if you can virtually explore a hotel or a destination first.
I can see that being compelling.
And as the hardware gets better and internet speeds increase, these 3D environments become more realistic, better for socializing, for commerce.
But it's not perfect yet. What are the bumps in the road for users?
Definitely not perfect. Our sources really stress the need to improve the first-time user experience. That whole onboarding process, getting started, figuring out how to move and interact, it needs to be much smoother, more intuitive.
Yeah, if it's confusing, people will just leave.
Exactly. Feeling in control and understanding the narrative of the space are key.
Now, this idea of immersion and engagement. The metaverse is often hyped as the next internet. What makes it potentially so different?
It's that potential blurring of physical and digital lives. Some sources even talk about us eventually living across multiple multiverses. And there's this ambition for decentralized metaverses, giving users more control, more ownership.
But that's a challenge for established brands.
Huge challenge. Adapting from traditional business models is tough. But consumer awareness is growing. We're even seeing things like metaverseology artists exploring these spaces, engaging the public.
And NFTs, digital art that ties into.
Very much so. That whole ecosystem around digital ownership and unique digital items is growing in parallel and feeds into this.
Travel is so social. How does that work virtually? Can you interact with others?
Oh, yeah. As avatars, people can interact, take virtual photos together, chat using word bubbles, share experiences.
Like being tourists together, but virtually.
Exactly. The key is making sure those interactions feel relevant to the virtual place, commenting on the scenery, the architecture, whatever it might be. And sharing it easily on social media or within the metaverse platform is important too.
But we have to talk about accessibility, don't we? Who actually gets to do this?
That's a really critical point raised in the sources. The cost of VRR gear is a major barrier for many.
The digital divide, but maybe amplified.
Potentially, yeah. There's concern that these virtual spaces could unintentionally disadvantage people who don't fit certain norms, physical or social. It's this tension designing for inclusion versus creating gatekeeping mechanisms.
The sources mentioned a preventative window.
Right, the idea of learning from the internet's mistakes, trying not to amplify biases, but then there's the entitlement window, the risk of excluding people from what could be a huge digital economy if they lack access or don't conform.
Serious considerations.
Okay,
let's shift to the economic side. This seems like it could be massive.
the pandemic definitely pushed interest in digital alternatives. That shift seems kind of inevitable now. But it's important to distinguish between just watching travel videos online and true immersive metaverse tourism.
And there are signs of economic activity already.
Yeah, things like rising virtual land prices and some platforms were early indicators. You could see new revenue streams emerging, maybe like fees for accessing premium virtual locations like virtual national parks.
Interesting. But IP protection becomes crucial then.
Absolutely essential. Protecting rights in the metaverse is a big challenge.
And real-world travel limits, cost, safety, distance, they actually boost interest in virtual options.
It makes sense, right? If somewhere is too far, too expensive, or seems unsafe, a virtual visit becomes more attractive. Companies offering really good metaverse coverage of a place might even price differently.
But it's seen more as a complement to real travel, not a replacement.
That's the general view in the sources, yes. And it also offers a chance maybe to address some negatives of real tourism, like pollution or cultural impact in the virtual context.
How are companies planning to actually make money here? What are the revenue models?
Well, that's a major focus, especially post-pandemic. Figuring out how these new services actually add to the bottom line is key. It's maybe less straightforward than valuing traditional online portals.
So they need tech partners.
Often, yeah. Partnering with tech experts is becoming common. We see examples like virtual vending machines for virtual eco-safaris. It could be software sales or integrating metaverse features into existing marketing, various approaches.
What about jobs? Could this create new kinds of work?
Definitely potential there. Tourism is already a big job creator, directly and indirectly. The metaverse opens up almost limitless advertising space in these virtual worlds.
Reaching new audiences through avatars?
Exactly. And interactive VRR can really grab attention, influence behavior, which creates needs for measuring ad effectiveness in these new ways.
And investment opportunities. Are there specific examples emerging?
Yes, some really creative ones, like wildlife tourism in Africa using fees and smart contracts, maybe crypto wildlife collectibles linked to virtual experiences.
NFTs for wildlife.
Yeah, offering artists revenue streams, secure ownership records via Web3 marketplaces, even ideas like decentralized community ownership of virtual wildlife parks using tokens, making access wider.
Fascinating. Okay, let's talk marketing. How do you sell a destination in the metaverse? It must be different.
Totally different playbook. Hospitality businesses could develop their own games or apps within game engines, maybe use AI for personalization. Using AI to measure how well these virtual destinations are developing is also key.
And strategies need to blend physical and virtual.
Right, using things like photogrammetry, creating 3D models from photos for the physical representation, combined with community building, brand integration within the virtual world. How to market more passive metaverse spaces is still a bit unclear, though.
So marketers need new metrics. Brand awareness in the metaverse.
Hmm.
Willingness to pay for VR tourism.
Precisely. Understanding motivations, purchase, attraction, participation, just seeing ads will shape pricing models.
What specific digital marketing techniques are working?
Immersive experiences are key. Leveraging the platforms, the hardware, the software, and the content, VR, AR, mixed reality, NFTs. Think indoor theme parks using VR previews.
So metaverse tourism starts with maybe panoramic images, 2D videos.
Often, yeah. Then moves to live streaming with voiceovers, 360-degree content, maybe eventually full on-location immersion with sensory feedback, haptics.
Haptics, feeling things virtually.
Yeah, that kind of tech. And user participation via smart devices, filters, animations is already common.
What about influencers? They're huge in real-world travel marketing.
Huge potential there, too. Micro-influencers doing virtual fam trips, channel takeovers within the metaverse, using brand assets to create content.
But authenticity is key, right? Staged versus real.
Absolutely. Brands might provide templates, but respecting the influencer's expertise and aiming for authentic content is crucial. Audiences are savvy. Disclosure is vital, too.
So influencer marketing could be the future here as well.
Very possibly, yeah. It's shaping up that way.
And branding itself. How does a brand even exist visually, audibly, maybe even tangibly in a virtual space?
It's about building that whole sensory structure, the brand concept, the visuals, the sounds, potentially even virtual tactile or scent elements, creating a cohesive identity in this new realm.
Okay, huge potential, but let's not ignore the challenges. What are the big roadblocks right now?
Cost and accessibility of gear, especially VR headsets, is a major one. We need affordable, user-friendly options for widespread adoption.
And the experience itself needs to be comfortable. No motion sickness.
Exactly. It has to be a true escape, not something that makes you feel ill. That's a big technical hurdle.
Marketing also needs to reach people not already in the metaverse.
Yes. Expanding the audience is critical. And addressing concerns about regulations, safety, security is vital for building trust. Even just navigating these spaces can be tricky for newcomers. User safety, protecting belongings, especially for kids, is paramount.
There's also a risk the virtual environments could just be boring, not living up to the real thing.
That's a real danger. Uninspired, generic spaces won't hold attention. Replicating the genuine awe of amazing real-world places virtually is incredibly hard. They need to be unique, compelling, truly engaging.
Let's dig into those challenges more. Technological limitations first.
Well, the tech is still pretty early stage overall. High barrier to entry, and not everyone has VR gear or experience. And even with gear, glitches happen.
Lag, visual errors, audio problems.
Right. Lagging, inaccuracies, audio-video cutting out, different loading times, voice chat issues. All that stuff breaks immersion. Plus, big media dominance could overshadow smaller, local virtual spaces.
No scale and activity support need work.
Definitely. How these worlds scale, what activities they can smoothly support across different types of content, that needs improvement. Right now, tech limits are often what pull people out of the experience. Creativity is needed to make even simpler 2D experiences better.
And embracing all audiences is key.
Crucial. Finding ways to get feedback. Focusing on what spatial formats do best, providing creator templates, ensuring device compatibility, diversifying resources for participation, all important strategies.
Regulatory issues seem like a minefield too.
Oh, absolutely. Health and safety in a virtual space. Liability. Who governs these platforms, especially when they cross borders instantly?
In privacy.
Huge. Data protection is urgent. Who owns your biometric data from a headset? Could it be used for real-world surveillance? What if user data gets leaked? And what about protecting regional cultures if access isn't managed well?
User safety and privacy feel amplified compared to the current web.
They really are, because it's so interactive. So much user-generated content. Defining personal info, behavior, communications gets way more complex. Cybersecurity threats like location leakage, data extraction from hardware, these are serious risks.
So privacy needs to be designed in from the start.
It has to be a top priority. But a truly comprehensive analysis of all the risks is still lacking, according to the sources.
Looking ahead then, what future trends are predicted? Where's this heading?
We'll likely see increasingly popular immersive platforms that mimic reality better or create compelling alternatives. More customization using mixed reality, better virtual replicas.
And virtual tourism supporting real travel.
Yeah, using gaming, avatars, becoming more integrated, but probably not a full replacement of wanting to see the real thing.
What drives broader adoption?
Corporate and government buy-in, leading to public acceptance. But there could be clashes different ideas about control versus open communication, echoing historical power struggles.
How will virtual and real tourism actually integrate? Will they work together?
That's the goal. Continuously improving the virtual experience, using big data to personalize virtual offerings, we might see more AI-generated worlds blending virtual humans and AI.
And innovative VR marketing, connecting VR to real events.
Exactly. Collaborations like between games and theme parks could be a model, bringing tourism activities into virtual worlds for learning, investors using VR to promote projects.
What other tech advancements are pushing this forward?
It's moving from sci-fi to practical reality because of powerful smart devices, better internet cooperation. This enables better 3D modeling, AR/VR, recommendation systems, smart assistants.
Building avatars and worlds that mirror reality more closely.
Right, blurring those virtual real lines. Smart devices are already changing lifestyles. COVID accelerated online socializing. Roblox going public was a big signal.
But there are concerns, too. Digital copies degrading real-world appreciation.
That's a valid concern. And the capitalization of information power. Web3 offers a chance to rethink applications, perhaps more ethically.
And sustainability, how does that fit in?
Well, traditional tourism has negative impacts, overcrowding, environmental damage. Virtual tourism could mitigate some of that.
But uses energy too, right?
Exactly. High demand could increase energy consumption, carbon emissions. So we need sustainable metaverse architecture. It's complex, context-specific, but it's a chance to think about sustainable virtual consumption.
Let's look at some case studies. How is this being used now?
We're seeing online experiences promoting destinations post-pandemic, though calling it tourism is sometimes debated. Virtual tours of historical sites, like one mentioned for Meteora in Greece.
Video clips, info, a virtual monastery visit.
Yeah, still maybe a mimicked model, but valuable. And event-based things, like that Metaverse moon dance party, VR tourism, 360 videos, live engagement are definitely growing. Researchers are studying user perceptions, too.
Event-based virtual tourism sounds promising for accessibility.
It really does. Overcoming time and geography limits. Research is looking into motivations, how virtual participation affects real travel intent.
Factors like event timing, cost, value.
Yeah.
They differentiate virtual from live.
Right. And interestingly, a good virtual experience might actually increase intent to travel later because it's accessible and lower cost initially. Collective participation matters, too.
So technical robustness, publicity, understanding user influence are key for planners.
Absolutely. Social media clips for replays, understanding cost versus influence for virtual camera work, it all feeds into making events successful and encouraging return visits.
What about experiencing culture in the metaverse?
That's a really exciting area. The metaverse as a social space for interacting with digital cultural environments. It's opening doors for architecture, journalism, education, creative media.
Changing how stories are told. More connected, maybe more egalitarian.
That's the potential. Opportunities for young designers, more flexibility for virtual museums using digital twins, 3D scanning, extended reality letting you explore without physical limits.
And cheaper headsets help. Pandemic pushed virtual access.
Both big factors. Moving beyond just 360 videos towards truly immersive experiences with avatars navigating in real time.
What are actual users saying? Any testimonials or early feedback?
Initial surveys showed some negativity, especially towards Facebook's involvement data concerns, misinformation, a dystopian feel.
But more mixed feelings about others, like NVIDIA or Sony.
Yeah, some optimism about an open metaverse, but still worried about expensive hardware. First-time amazement at big VR environments like KV systems is common.
But attendance dropped post-COVID. VR seen as elite.
Sometimes, yeah. Organizations are trying to improve immersion and interaction, but often it's still limited, like 360 video on phones.
And skepticism. Memes calling VR gimmicky.
Yes, that sentiment exists too, seeing it as just entertainment, not a major leap.
Okay, let's wrap up with a comparison. Metaverse versus traditional tourism. How do they really stack up?
So Metaverse tourism is that 3D immersive virtual experience. Great for promotion, design, new services, but needs lots of tech, raises social concerns, isolation, digital divide.
Risk of a degraded experience. Less revenue for real places, excluding people.
Those are potential downsides, yes. The hope is that virtual scenery development can offer unique experiences, maybe even things impossible in reality.
What about cost? That's a big one for travelers.
Metaverse travel is generally way cheaper.
Yeah.
Transport, accommodation, food costs. Saves huge amounts of time, too. Main costs are the gear and internet.
Free trials help lower the bar.
They do, but the consumption models are different. Real world. Pay for services resources there. Metaverse. Often involves virtual land ownership, corporate operations, marketing costs baked in.
And recreating complex real-world attractions virtually is still hard and expensive.
That can be, yeah. But you also get cheap stuff like quiz rewards alongside pricey corporate camps. That's a mix.
And experience quality, how do you even compare that?
Researchers use models looking at hedonics, pleasure, escape, recognition, involvement, relaxation, peace of mind. Also, service performance, engagement, perceived value.
Prior connection to a place matters virtually too.
Seems so. Good service, informative, engaging, connective is key. Satisfaction versus perceived value. It's complex.
Finally, environmental impact. We touched on it, but the comparison.
Virtual tourism could reduce negative impacts of physical travel, climate change-wise, but high demand could spike energy use.
So sustainable metaverse design is needed.
Crucial. The impact is very context-specific, depends on user choices too. We need a better theory of sustainable virtual consumption.
Okay, so bringing this all together, metaverse tourism is clearly evolving fast. Huge potential to change how we experience travel, culture, driven by tech, involving lots of different players.
Absolutely. The possibilities for integrating with real-world travel, new tech, they're really exciting. But, we absolutely have to tackle the challenges.
Technological limits, regulations, ethics, safety, privacy, cultural sensitivity, that digital divide.
All crucial. They need proactive solutions.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, our listener. As these physical and digital worlds keep blending, how might our actual understanding of what an experience is change as metaverse tourism grows? What does that mean for our connection to the real world, to its diverse cultures?
It's definitely something to chew on.
Really is. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today. We hope it sparked some thoughts and maybe encourages you to explore these questions further.